So if you ask someone, what's stressing you out right now? Or even ask yourself, you'll probably get a mentalistic answer. And what I mean by that is something related to the mind, something related to thoughts and thinking. On the surface, it'll sound like, well, relationships or my work or the virus, perhaps. But when you take that apart a little bit, you'll find that actually it's your thoughts about work, your thoughts about relationships, or your thoughts about the virus. For many people, that's actually the main stressor. And the point of this video is to suggest that maybe that's completely wrong. Maybe stress was never meant to be mental. Maybe the original nature of stress is actually physical, and that we're just at a really new time with the human experiment now, maybe just a few hundred years into shifting from physical stress, which we're made to deal with, to mental stress, which really doesn't work. In particular, it doesn't work when we try to apply a a solution to it. So we're using thoughts to fight thoughts. It's like two ghosts fighting it out. And, neither one wins or loses. It's just a useless struggle. So let's take a look at humanity. So we've been on the planet now 2.5 million years, and our version, Homo sapiens, we've been on the planet for about 200,000 or 300,000 years. And when you think about the radical shifts in environment and how there's an ice age about every 100,000 years on this planet, we've survived cold that is so much more intense than what we might conceptualize. I'm in Western Pennsylvania in the United States, and what we think of as cold would have been nothing to our ancestors. And biologically, we haven't changed very much. So you could have a time machine, go back and like 100,000 years ago, and get some Homo sapien and bring them to this modern version, and they would go unnoticed. And by that same very interesting reverse on that is you, as an infant, could have been taken back 100,000 years and lived through these ice ages, and the cold wouldn't seem like it seems today. Cold. So what is the Wim Hof method about? It may be about, this is just my take on it, but it may be about taking us back in time, taking us back to a place where we were equipped to deal with the true origins of what stress really is. It's physical. And so it involves two things: cold exposure, and you can do this simply by going out into the cold or taking cold showers, and that exposes your body to stress. But the idea is that what you're doing is waking up these dormant systems to deal with that kind of stress. And to kind of help that are the breathing techniques. And so the breathing techniques tap into your parasympathetic system, which is that rest and digest, that everything's going to be okay. And so as you're waking up these dormant stress systems, you're also coupling that with some ways to calm your nervous system down. So you're reprogramming the brain that cold is okay. And if you ever took developmental psychology, you very likely would have seen a documentary on Jeannie. Jeannie was a very abused child, pretty much isolated from civilization, just put up in an attic and just given food, no human interaction at all. And when you watch the documentary, most of it focuses on her language, that we need early exposure to language. But one of the things that I remember, and this is literally going back to like the 80s when I was in Intro to Psych, it always stood out in my mind, is that she had no response to the cold. And so it could be in the middle of winter, and she could go running around playing in the freezing cold, with just a dress on, and not feel it. And that's one of the things that the researchers had noticed, but they didn't really know what to make of it. So what if we're really playing around with the human experiment? Think about it as a kid. Here's what we do. I did it with my kids. The first time they shiver, we wrapped them in a blanket. We taught kids systematically that cold is bad. And so even when my son, when it was a trendy thing to wear shorts through winter, and everyone was very upset about this because they'll say, well, you might get sick. I mean, that's the way we demonize the cold. We think of, like, you're going to get ill if you go out into the cold. What if all that is just totally wrong? What if we're really messing with the 2.5 million year very successful program? That is stress. You're supposed to stress your physical body. We've got these programs that deal with it, and that is actual stress. And once we put things back in place, what we conceptualize as mental stress could literally have found its original home, and maybe we wouldn't even deal with it anymore. So I've been doing this for a few months right now, and the one thing I can tell you, it's just one person, it's not a scientific conclusion, but I remember having that experience when I recognized that thoughts were not what I thought they were. It's a very profound kind of shift in what it means to be human. And I've had a very similar experience with the cold. To me, the cold isn't actually what I thought it was. Cold isn't cold anymore. And so I know this is a trendy thing. A lot of people are jumping on the Wim Hof experiment. And so if you've played around with this, I'd really be interested in if you've played around with it and had some interesting results. So drop a line, let me know.